Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaraachaarya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. त्रैलोक्यनाथ हरिमीड्यमुदार सत्वं शक्तेस्तनूजतनयं परमेष्ठिकल्पं जीमूतमुक्तविमलाम्बरचारुवर्णं वासिष्ठमुग्रतपसं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यम्। परसंविदिताः सततं हि यतो न विदुस्वममी विषयास्तु ततः मतयोऽपि तथा परसंविदिता न विदुस्वममुर्विषयास्तु यथा विषयाकृति संस्थितिरेकविधा मनसस्तु सदा व्यवहारविधौ अहमित्यपि तद्विषयातु अपरा मतिवृत्तिरज्वलितात्मचिता. So here in the last class we saw that Totakaacharya was trying to show how Atma is different from the mind. Atma is called avikritaha. Okay, avikritaha means that which does not undergo any change, that which is not subjected to any modification. And Atma itself was revealed to be this. This one should be connected to the rest of the verses also, wherever it is there. Drishi Rupam, Anantam, Ritam, Vigunam, Hridayastam Avehi Sadahamiti. This is the crux of the teaching. Now, when you say this Atma is Avikritaha, unchanging, then what about all the changes which are happening? Because without change being there, no cognition is possible. Any cognition of any object involves change. So how do we account for all these changes? Even in our own understanding, I undergo change, like this people take oneself, correct? So then Totakaacharya said that all these changes are all only in the mind, in the intellect, mind, the anthakarana, the internal organ. And what is the logic he is giving for this? Because he is trying to give a certain logic also, a supporting logic for this. So first he showed that if you take the 9th verse onwards only, he starts this topic. What he says is, for an object to be known, the mind has to come in contact with that object through the sense organs and take the form of that object. That means the mind is the one which is undergoing some change to take the form of a particular object. That is called the buddhi vritti or mano vritti. So that change is happening only in the mind, and that is why in fact some objects are known, some objects are not known, because if the mind is not taking the form of that object will not be perceived by you. So there is this, certain objects are known, certain objects are not known. That is because of how whether the mind is active and whether the mind takes the form of that object or not. But in the case of the changes in the mind itself, that also is cognized by you, but that cognition is always there. Whatever is happening in your mind is always cognized by the witness consciousness, and it never stops. The witness consciousness is something which is always awake. In fact, it never sleeps. There is nothing called sleep for the witness consciousness. It is always there. So everything which happens in your mind is always known. If the mind itself resolves also, this witness consciousness is still there. And that's why you say that I slept well, I did not know anything and all that, even when you wake up from sleep. So even the waking up, dreaming, sleep, everything is only for the antakarana. The Atma is ever awake. The consciousness can never go to sleep. That's why it is called alupta drika, that which the seer which never stops seeing, in fact. So this point he explains in the next couple of verses also. So basically what he is trying to show is, because there are different views about all these things, Buddhists have a certain view that mind can be both the knower and the known. Okay, so that one we cannot accept, because the known can never become the knower. That is what we see. So he gives an example for that also, like even any pot, which is a known pot, or any other object for that matter, objects which are known do not know themselves. Okay. Similarly, whatever is happening in your mind also, it is all known. Therefore, mind also is considered as jada only in the Siddhanta. Therefore, there has to be a separate witness consciousness other than the mind to know whatever is happening in the mind. That is the basic logic which he is talking about in the next few verses also. Okay. The Viditatvam means Drishyatvam. So since Viditatvam is there for the activities of the mind also, all your emotions, your mental states are all known to you. You are aware of whatever is happening in your mind. All the thoughts which are happening in your mind are also known to you. Since everything in the mind is known, then there has to be a knower other than the mind. Understand this. Because the knower and the known can never be the same. And that is how it is with reference to every object which you know also. Okay. So this, whatever is happening in the mind is also known, and therefore mind is also a known object only with reference to the consciousness. This was said, and finally in the 14th verse, one more important thing was introduced, and that will only now continue for the next few verses. What is that? Like, this is part is knowledge, because you are cognizing a part, let us say, which is in front of you. But there is also this knowledge that I know the part. Correct? So, cognition means it is not just cognizing an object. It is simultaneously the subject also knowing that I know the object. Both takes place at the same time, in fact. What is cognized? Part knowledge takes place. I know the part also takes place. The subject and object are always together. Then only the vyavahara itself is possible. There is all the transactions in the world are not possible if somebody does not identify as a subject, correct? As a karta, bhokta. So the karta, bhokta is very important. It is all ahankara only. It is in the form of the I thought. In fact, the I thought is the root of all thoughts. Like this, even Ramana Maharishi used to say that he was very particular that you have to find the root of the I thought. And the entire vichara is supposed to be that only. The analysis into oneself, one has to do to find the root of the I thought itself. Where does it arise from? So I also is a thought. This he introduced in the 14th verse, up to which we saw last time, where he said there are two types of vyavahara. One is, this is part. The other is, I know the part. Okay. Ahamityapi tad vishayatu apara mativrittihi, he said. So, this I thought also is part of the mind only. Understand that it is a thought in the mind, and that is also lighted up avajvalita atmachita by the witness consciousness, by the I, which is the consciousness, which is the real I in fact. So that consciousness alone lights up this aham vritti also, or ahankara, the I thought. So there is an I thought, there is a this thought. Those two are very important. Why these two are important? In fact, even the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, Shankaracharya starts with this only, correct? Yushmad asmad pratyaya gocharayoho vishaya vishayinoho. So there is a vishaya, there is a vishayi. So there is an object and subject. Object is always this. Subject is always I. But where does the confusion start? Means when the object is taken as subject, that is where the entire confusion, all the problems start. So here Totakaacharya also wants to now introduce adhyasa, because all the problem is because of superimposing the not I on I, and also the I, whatever the qualities of I on not I. Both ways it happens. Okay. So this superimposition, mutual superimposition, is the cause of all the samsara, or the life of becoming. It is the cause of yourself taking yourself as an individual who is restricted to a particular body mind sense complex. That is how everybody understands oneself, and nobody and most people do not even analyze this part. It is taken for granted. That is your identity. You have a certain identity as an individual based on the body mind sense complex, in which you are doing all this vyavahara, correct? Whatever transactions you are doing in the world. So your entire identity is based on that. And without that identity, this transactional world and the whatever transactions you are doing in that itself is not possible. So both have to be there. There has to be an object consciousness. There has to be a subject consciousness. So you are the one who is aware of both the subject and object. Okay. But the tragedy is that you take yourself as the subject who is restricted to a particular body mind sense complex. That's where the entire issue comes. So that's what he is going to now. Totakaacharya is now going to show that this I thought is very important, and that is the subject, and that because of that only all the issues are also coming. Okay, he is now going to show you that. So the next verse we'll see. Purushasya tu dharma vadudbhavati Swarasena mate swagunopi sati ata atma gunam pratiyanti jana mati vritti mimam ahamitya buddhaha. This should be swagunaha, not swamunaha. This is a spelling mistake, I think, in this site. Should be swaguna, one's own quality. So here, Purushasya dharma vat, like vat is very important here. Udbhavati. So here actually Udbhavati means it arises. What is arising? Here actually is talking about the I thought only, because I thought only was also the subject matter of the previous verse. Okay. So this I thought arises as though it is the dharma or the nature of the Purusha. Here is the Purusha word is used for Chaitanyam only, the witness consciousness. So it rises as though it is the quality of the self. But in reality, what it is, Swarasena mate swagunopi sati, even though it is actually the essential quality of the mind only. The I thought also is a thought. It is a modification of the mind only. Even though it is actually essentially a quality of the mind, it rises as though it is the quality of the self or the pure consciousness. And therefore, what happens? Now, this is where now Totakaacharya has established this adhyasa. So the same adhyasa only Bhashyakara talks about in the adhyasa bhashya. He introduces the Brahma Sutra itself with adhyasa, because that is how the first you have to state the problem, correct? The problem statement has to be the first thing. And once you appreciate what the problem is, then only you can resolve it properly. So if you don't even understand what is your problem, what is your fundamental problem, you can never get any resolution, and that fundamental problem will keep on continuing, not only in this life. it will go on forever and ever. It is a vicious cycle, correct? So he has identified the problem here. Totakaacharya has identified here. What is the problem? The I thought also arises in the mind, but it arises as though it is the quality of yourself. That means you take yourself, this I, with reference to a particular body mind sense complex. Okay, the way your very identity now you are placing on the body mind sense complex, because the I thought arises in that particular body mind sense complex as though it is the quality of yourself. Therefore, what? Ata atma gunam pratiyanti janaha. So janaha means generally people, everybody. And who are these janaha? Abudhaha means they are all not jnanis. They don't have knowledge. Buddhaha means those who are knowledgeable, wise people. And these are all otherwise people. They are not wise, they are otherwise. Okay, or unwise, we have to say. So people who do not know themselves, they take this as the Atma Guna, means the I thought itself is taken as the quality of I, as really the self. So Ata Atma Gunam Pratiyanti Janaha Mati Vritti Mimam. Even though it is a Mati Vritti, it is the modification of the mind only, this I thought. Those who are not knowledgeable take it as one's own quality or one's own nature. So then what? All the problems start. Once you have identity on the body mind sense complex, all the problems of the body mind sense complex are your problems. So if the eyes are not seeing properly, you say that I am becoming blind. Correct? I am blind. If your body has gained weight, you say I am fat. You go in the sun and then you say I become dark. I have become black, dark, whatever. People have complexes on that also. In fact, some people feel good also. They say that I have tanned. Some people like tanned skin also. Maybe so both problems are there. Sometimes you also feel good about it. Both good and bad are superimposed on yourself. So like this you can see, with reference to body, the I identity is there. It is a locus of I. Body is a locus of I. Then prana is a locus of I. I am hungry, I am thirsty, etc. All physiological processes also is a locus of I. Indriyas are also locus of I. I am blind, I am deaf, etc. Correct? Of course, mind is definitely a locus of I. So I am happy, I am sad, I am emotional, whatever emotion it may be. Then buddhi also, I am idiot, I am stupid, I am unwise, I am wise, whatever, I am knowledgeable. Then there is also this the bhokta, correct? I am the enjoyer, aham sukhi, aham dukhi, all these things are there. So the locus of I are there in all these places, and you take the buddhi, the swaguna of the body mind sense complex. The gunas of the body mind sense complex are taken as my guna. It is as though my guna, it is dharmavad. That is what purushasya dharmavat he says. It is as though you cognize it as your own dharma. This adhyasa is the root of all the problems, and one has to accept this adhyasa. See, the interesting thing is, Totakaacharya will now argue to establish that this adhyasa is there. Why? Because logically speaking, this adhyasa cannot be there. Okay, because even Shankaraachaarya starts the adhyasa bhashya like that only. The adhyasa itself is an illogical thing, because how can I be this or this become I? Okay, yushmad asmad pratyaya gocharayoho vishaya vishayinoho tamah prakashavat viruddha swabhavayoho. Like that only Bhashyakara starts. They are like light and darkness. Okay, this yushmad pratyaya and asmad pratyaya, I and this are like light and darkness. They are opposed to each other, and they cannot thus be mixed with each other at all, logically speaking. But still it is there. That is because everybody starts, this adhyasa is naisargikaha, and it is anubhava siddha, correct? Everybody is experiencing subject object duality, and it is not something you created or anything. It is there. It is beginningless. It is there. Therefore, you have to start from there only. In fact, the entire teaching also is there only in duality, correct? In the subject object transactional world only, the teaching itself is taking place. So we start from there. So here Totakaacharya is trying to establish that the subject object duality is there in the vyavahara. Everybody has to accept that. So after establishing that the cognition of objects are taking place because of mind, now he is trying to establish as the modification of the mind only, and both I thought it has to be there for the vyavahara to happen. Otherwise, the vyavahara itself is not possible. So now let us see the next verse, what he says. Yadi sana bhave janamohakari vyavaharamimam na janonubhavet viphalascha tada vishayanubhavaha nyaguno na hiseti yada vidita. So yadi sana bhavet, if this aham vritti is not there, let us say this I thought is not there, and this I thought itself is mohakari, he says, because everything starts with this I thought only. That you take yourself as the subject, from there only the entire vyavahara, everything starts. The samsara itself starts there. That's why it is mohakari, it is delusional. Taking the I thought as I is the first step towards samsara. It is the fundamental delusion one indulges in. So that is a mohakari only. It is something which deludes you, that taking the I thought as I. And because of that only, vyavaharam imam is there. The vyavahara is there. If this I thought is not taken as I, then nobody will experience any vyavahara. So janaha vyavaharam imam na anubhavet. Then they will not. But it is there. It is there in the anubhava of everybody, correct? The idea is of saying that in a negative form like this is to establish that only. And also further, if there is no I thought, why all activities are taking place? In fact, why everybody is doing everything only for oneself, correct? In fact, if you read the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, correct, the Maitreyi Brahmanam, what does Maitreyi Brahmanam say? Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati, correct? Even though you may say I love you and all that, one's own wife also is pleasing, lovable, etc. because that wife has to invoke a pleased you in yourself, or the husband has to invoke the pleased you in yourself. Otherwise, you will allow them to go. Love will become allowed. Okay. So, everything Atmanastu Kamaya Sarvam Priyam Bhavati, everything is for oneself only. And even in the other Upanishads also, this Dva Suparna, Sayuja, Sakhaya, like that. So Pippalam Swadu Atti, it is there. That means you take yourself as the enjoyer, Bhokta. This Karta Bhokta is the fundamental delusion. One starts from there. Even though in reality, you are Akarta, Abhokta. Correct? This is what, in fact, the entire Gita is about teaching you this truth that you are not a Karta Bhokta. Correct? Bhagavan himself says, Chaturvarnyam Maya Srishtam. Correct? But he says, Tasya Kartaram Apimam Vidya Kartaram Avyayam. He says, even though I have created this entire world, know me as the one who has not done anything. Correct? Akarta and Avyaya, one who does not change in any manner. Know me means you have to know yourself also in the same way. Correct? It's not that Bhagavan is separate from you. So, this Vyavahara, one is experiencing only because one takes oneself as the subject, and then the objective world also comes into the picture automatically, because subject object are interdependent or mutually dependent. And this entire objective transactions, all of them are only for the sake of the subject, correct? For the sake of I. Therefore, if this I thought itself is not there, then the Vishaya Anubhava, whatever Vishaya Anubhava is happening, all the experiences of different objects, sense objects particularly, they will all be useless. Okay. So unless you take this I, Nyagunaha Nahi Seti, he says. Nyagunaha means Nya here again is the pure consciousness. So you have to, pure consciousness alone is Atma, is the self. So you have to take this I thought also as a quality of the self, means you are taking the self as subject. That is the idea here. Unless you take the self as the subject, no objective transactions will make any meaning, correct? It will all become meaningless. Only because you are taking the I thought as the, or you are taking the self as the subject, the I thought as a quality of your own self, because of that only, all the objective transactions also become meaningful. They have a purpose, because it is all for yourself, in fact. So, that is what he is establishing. So basically, Totakaacharya is establishing both this Yushmad and Asmad Pratyaya, both are there, and there is a mixing up of the two because of that only, because of this Adhyasa only, which is Mohakari, which is a delusion. This entire samsara is there, this Vyavahara is there, transaction. The same thing now he continues in two more verses. So, Upalabhya Gatadhi Nibhaiva Bhaven Manaso Yadi Samstitire Kavidha Purushasya Chitischa Na Vikriyate Mati Vrittim Apeksha Gatadhi Nibham Avagantra Vagamya Chidatma Dhiyoho Ahamitya Bhimana Vihinataya Stitire Stitayora Bhimana Purassarakam Vyavahara Patham na Jano Vataret. So these next two verses also is continuing the same topic. So he says, Upalabhya gatadhi nibhaiva bhaven manasaha yadi samsitihi ekavidha. What he says is, let us say that there is only objective cognition, like Gatadi Nibha. Nibha means like or similar to what we cognize the Gata, etc., which are all external objects, correct? So let us say there is only the cognition of external objects, only one type of manovritti. There is no aham vritti. There is no subjective consciousness. There is only a cognition of object. So you don't cognize a subject. And then this Atma never undergoes any change, correct? Purushasya chitischa na vikriyate. Okay, mati vrittim apekshya ghatadi nibham. Similar to this gata, etc., there has to be a mati vritti also, correct? The subject has to be there, but let us say it is not there. There is no subjective cognition, only objective cognition is there. Without any subjective cognition, if we have only objective, it does not assume. See, the self itself is unchanging. Self does not take it cannot go and take the form of the subject itself, really speaking. So, or we have to take here the meaning as, see, the manifestation of consciousness. In the I thought is not happening. That's what we have to say. Purushasya chitihi na vikriyate mati vrittim apekshya. Here the mati vritti is the I thought only. Aham vritti only. Like it is happening with reference to the objective cognition. If there is no manifestation or awareness with reference to the I thought, similar to Gata, etc., Gatati Nibham, what will happen? In fact, this verse itself is only half. So he continues that in the next one. So if this is not there, because understand our epistemology, our theory of knowledge, what is that? For us, everything is consciousness. There is only one consciousness, which is the reality. The same consciousness appears as objects also. The entire objective world, don't think it is something different. The very existence of each and every object is nothing but this existence of Atma alone, or Brahman. It is because Brahman is Jagat Karanam, and Jagat Karanam means the Karya, the existence of the effect or Karya is nothing but the existence of the cause or Karana. So the entire objective world also is Chaitanya only. It is a manifestation of consciousness. Then you have this Ahankara, which is also there, in which also consciousness is manifesting. And then, so that is called the Ahankara Avachinna Chaitanyam. The consciousness conditioned by the Ahankara is the knower, or the Aham Vritti is there, the knower or the subject. The consciousness conditioned by the object is the Idam or the Vishaya. Vishaya Avachinna Chaitanyam, we say. The consciousness which is conditioned by the objects. So there is a consciousness conditioned by object, consciousness conditioned by the mind, which is the subject. And when does cognition take place? When the mind goes and takes the form of the object, we say. No, mind going and taking the form of that object, that part of the mind is called the manovritti, or the modification of the mind, or a particular state of mind. Then the consciousness is manifest there also. That is called the pramana avachinna chaitanyam. So there are three types or three conditioned consciousnesses. Understand that. Although consciousness is only one, from different standpoints we are counting it as three. Correct? One is the object, the consciousness conditioned by the object, consciousness conditioned by the mind, and also consciousness conditioned by the mental modification which takes the form of the object. Now, knowledge takes place when the consciousness which is conditioned by the mental modification and consciousness which is conditioned by the object are one and the same. When they become one and the same, only knowledge takes place. But at the same time, the consciousness which is conditioned by the entire mind also is there, correct? That only becomes the knower, subject. So whenever the part consciousness happens, I know the part also happens. Both the cognitions are happening at the same time for us, because consciousness is the one and the same. It is lighting up everything at the same time. Yugapat, it all happens. Otherwise, the Nayayikas and all say that the part cognition happens, and then I know the part cognition happens separately. If it happens separately, then who knows the I know the part cognition will become a problem. Is another cognition required for that? Means it becomes infinite regress will happen. Understand that. That's why the Vedantin, for the Vedantin, the whole thing happens Yugapat or simultaneously. That means both the objective cognition and subjective cognition are always together, and they are simultaneous, because they are backed up by the consciousness which is the pure consciousness, which is always available anyway, correct? So this is our epistemology. In this, if you say only the objective cognition takes place, there is no subjective cognition at all. Means, what is the problem in that? That's what he is saying. So the first portion, the 17th verse, is only saying if there is only objective consciousness and there is no consciousness which manifests in the mind itself as a subject or as a knower, what will happen? He says, avagantra avagamya chidatma diyoho. Avagantra avagamya chidatma diyoho. Ahamitya bhimana vihinataya. Sthitayorabhimana purassarakam. Vyavahara patham na jano avataret or jano vataret. Correct? So, if there is only object cognition and there is no subjective cognition, then what? Avagantra avagamya chidatma diyoho. So there is a avagantra, means the one who is the knower. Avagamya means what? The known. So there is a known, there is a knower. Two things are there, avagantra, avagamya. So the conscious knower and the known mind, and these two are there without any identification. Ahamiti abhimana vihinataya means what? Without having identification of the I thought, without the I thought or without the subject, only the object consciousness and the this manovritti avachinna chaitanya, only those two are there, without any aham abhimana or I am the knower, etc. Then what? Sthitayor abhimana purassarakam means sthitihi here means all the states or activities you can take. Okay, all the activities. Abhimana purassarakam means what? That which require an identity of I thought. Aham abhimana is required. Then only you can do, because all activities are for your sake only, correct? So all the activities which require the identification, your identification with the I thought, they will not be there. Vyavahara patham. Okay, Vyavahara patham means that which you can undertake in the Vyavahara, in the transactional world. Na janaha avatare, they will not undertake. Nobody can undertake any activity in this Vyavahara if there is no aham dhi, if there is no identification as karta, as aham, if there is no aham vritti, there cannot be any Vyavahara in the world. So this is what he is again pointing out, because this is what he said here also. So na janaha anubhavet vyavaharam imam. But the same thing is again repeating in more detail. Without the I thought, there cannot be any vyavahara. So the I thought is the root of everything. That also we have to understand here. Why Totakaacharya is pointing this out is The I thought is the fundamental starting point for everything. One has to identify as a particular subject, then only all the activities in the objective world can happen and will have any meaning. So we have to accept that the I thought also is there along with the this thought, both are there. Okay, so then what? Ahamiksha iti prathamam hi dhiya suvichintya tato vishayabhimukham nayanam prahinoti tathanyadapi shravanadi viyat pramukhasya gune. So, like I said already, the I thought is the fundamental thing. So, first one has to know oneself as a subject, as aham. Ahamiksha iti prathamam hi dhiya. So, in the first, you have to have this aham. You have to see oneself as the subject. And then only what? Dhiya suvichintya, after taking oneself as the subject, identifying with a particular body, mind, sense complex. So after this identification with the I thought only, tataha, thereafter only what? Vishayabhimukam, then only you can cognize anything other. So you focus on some object and know them. And that he is explaining here. Nayanam prahinoti means what? You open your eyes. Even when you get up from sleep, correct? Initially your eyes are all closed. Then you get up, open your eyes. But before you open your eyes only, you know you have a certain identification with this body, mind, sense complex already. Then you open the eyes. Right? We say that as soon as you open your eyes in the morning, you start with a certain prayer and all that, correct? We say some Karagre vasate lakshmihi, karamadhye saraswati, karamule stita gauri, prabhate karadarshanam. Like that we start. You have to see your own hands, and in that Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, everybody is there in your hands only. It is all in you. Right? The entire Bhagavan Shakti is manifest as your body, mind, sense complex also, correct? Bhagavan is not separate from you. So you start the day like that, it is great. But even then, still this hand is something other than the I thought. Hand becomes the object. The beauty is you can see the hand as an object and still in some other context take the hand as myself. Correct? If the hand has a cut, then you say, I am cut, I have a cut, I am bleeding, etc. Even though it is an object, you still put the subjective there also. So subjective thought on the object, you mix it up and then all the problems are there. So only first after taking oneself as a subject, after identifying with the I thought, nayanam prahinoti, you use your eyes to view some objects, and also similarly your ears and all that. Anyadapi shravanadi, other shravanadi padat, all other indriyas. Okay, you do vyavahara, viyat pramukhasya gune. Viyat is actually the akasha only, because the akasha is shabda gunakam akasham, like that we take traditionally. So the akasha is supposed to have sound as its quality. So your ears are also now focusing on the sound. Okay, viyat pramukhasya gune. So your eyes, your ears, and other sense organs also, all of them you operate only after first identifying yourself as a subject, only after identifying with the I thought. Without the I thought, you cannot do all these things. That is the idea. In fact, continuing, apahaya na kaschidaham karanam vyavaharam upaiti kadachidapi upapanna tarahi matestu tato vyavahara patham pratikaranata. So finally, he is now establishing this I thought has to be there for any vyavahara to happen, any transaction to happen in this transactional world. So, and he points out, apahaya na kaschid ahankaranam. So giving up this ahankarana, this I thought, if you give up this I thought, then you cannot do any vyavahara. Vyavaharam upaiti kadachit. Nobody does any vyavahara. Okay? Nobody engages in any transaction in this transactional world, okay, without the I thought. Okay, no one can engage in activities. The I thought has to be there. That is the root of everything. And therefore what? Tataha upapannatarahi matehe. So for this mind, upapannatara means it is proper, it is tenable. What is proper, what is tenable, what is true with reference to the mind? This is true. What is that? Vyavahara patham prati karanata. So the here matehe means for the mind, the I thought, okay, is the karanata, means it is the cause. So it has the causality. The I thought has the causality with reference to all the transactional activities. The vyavahara patham means you can take it as all the activities which you do in this objective world, this transactional world. For that, I thought is the root cause. Everything starts with the I only. The I thought has to be there. Only if the I thought is there, all other thoughts follow that. All other cognition follows that. All other activities follow that. And that is how this entire world is operating. So without the I thought, none of this is possible. So our Totakaacharya has now established this entire vyavahara is based on this thought and I thought, and both these thoughts are there only in mind. Understand? From all these things, what we are trying to understand is that the Chaitanya itself is avikritaha. We have to go back to that always. Correct? Chaitanyam, Atma, self, it is always what? The sixth verse is continuing still. It is always Drishi Rupam, Anantam, Ritam, Vigunam. It doesn't have any guna. Understand that. It is all the Mati guna, the Deha guna, all these qualities we are superimposing on I, which in reality is only of the nature of this consciousness, Drishi Rupam. It is limitless. It is the only reality or truth because it is the only thing which is unchanging. It is the invariable presence all the time. It is there. And it doesn't have any quality of its own. And it is Hridayastham. That is what is also available. As I, whatever is available is really this consciousness alone. So one good thing about the I thought is without the I thought you cannot have moksha also. Understand that. For both bandha and moksha, this I thought is required. Because how does one attain freedom means by holding on to that I only and trying to find out what this I is really. Correct? What is the origin of this I thought means it has to end in this Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma only. And that is the real I. That is what one has to know. So Sadaham Avehi. So whatever I, it is not just the I thought in the mind. I is the one which is the basis for the entire subject-object vyavahara. That is the real I. That I, that consciousness is limitless because even space-time is there in that. You are not an I in space-time as a subject. Understand that. You are really the consciousness, the awareness, this unchanging reality in which space-time also is appearing. That is your reality. And that's what you have to appreciate. So that's why here beautifully Totakaacharya has shown that both this consciousness and I consciousness with reference to being a subject, all these things are only happening in the realm of your mind. And consciousness, pure consciousness, which is really you, is independent of all these things. In fact, it doesn't undergo any change. In its presence, all these things are happening. That's all. Okay. But if you take yourself as this I thought, then it is moha, it is delusion. Then you are an ajnani, abudhaha. He used all these words, correct? Mohakari, abudha. So only those who do not know themselves correctly and take themselves for granted consider themselves as the subject. Once you take yourself as a subject, then the entire objective world will trouble you. Okay. So all the problems starts from there. So that's what one has to be aware of. And this whole Vedanta Vichara, all the sadhana is only to know oneself as separate from this subject-object duality. Know yourself as the limitless conscious being who is the basis for the subject-object duality, because anything interdependent, mutually dependent should have a third reality on which they are based. And that is yourself, in fact. And that self is free from any limitation. That self is not an object in space-time. That's what one has to understand. That is your reality. So we'll continue next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
धन्यवाद.